Hey everyone, it's Dogfire. It's time for another Dogfire Down and Dirty review. Today we're going to do a review on the new Inception Designs RIP frame. And this is the version I have here is for the Wargames product. And just see what comes all in the package here. Now real quick, you can go to Simon's website, Inception Designs, and he has a good video on kind of going through the functions of this, which I'm not going to really go into. I'm going to kind of give my initial impressions in this first half, and then I'm going to do a teardown of this so you can see what the internals are in this frame. So basically what comes in the box is you get the frame, and I got the gloss black one, the gloss black ano, and I can tell you right now the anodizing is nice. It's a true black. It's not that purple black, and which I do like. It's got the Inception Design grips on it, and I don't know if all of his grips, yeah, I guess they all have had this Inception Designs here, Inception name there. The polish job is actually really nice. I don't see really any mill lines. There doesn't feel to be any sharp edges where you would have critical points where you have rub on your finger or whatever. This is one of the lightened frames, or I think all his frames are coming this way, where he's milled out a lot of the fat in the frame, even on the bottom. So these holes go all the way through. So it's a fairly light frame. It's comfortable in the hand. It feels just like his normal slider frames and the profile of the frame. It's just that this trigger guard's obviously much larger, and then you have this hinge mechanism here, and that we'll talk a little bit about more. What else comes in the package? So you get a couple sets of screws here. You have the two different type of frame screws, one for Wargames, the other one for Inception Designs bodies. Then it looks like you have a sear spring and two trigger. There's one there, two trigger return springs, and these are the two set screws if you're going to do the Inception Designs slider on here. You can just put those there and then screw them down from the top, and they'll lock your ASA in. So that's what you get in the box. Obviously his packaging is always really nice. Thanks Simon for the quality, but it is designed for storefronts. If I were to kind of compare it against one of the older frames, and this one's a matte black, and this is a first gen frame, and it has a Delron trigger in it. So the grip profiles are the same. Look up here, kind of see that profile. Comparative. If you look at with your hands, two fingers here, you can run your third finger here and still operate the trigger. And I think Simon talks about that in his video also, which I do like. So that's nice. Or two finger it. Kind of the same thing. So there's some of the features that I see on this. It does have a front set screw for forward travel and rearward travel. I don't know if it has one. I think Simon talks about that. It has some adjustment holes here that Simon talks about in his video. I'm not going to go through that. Therefore, I think setting the how much force you have. But one of the kind of the neat things, and just looking at the outside of this frame, that I notice is how he does the hinge. And for instance, let me grab another hinge frame. Let's just get a Wargames hinge frame, because this is the most kind of universal. And so how this one works, and if you look at, here's the hinge point on a Wargames. This screw right here, or opposite this screw right here, is a shoulder screw. That becomes this hinge point for this trigger blade. Likewise for this. And how these guys work is when this swings back, it pushes a back piece of metal on this trigger, just pushes it up, which then it moves that the sear. Okay, pretty simple. This is different, and when Simon kind of explains it in his video, he says it's different than all other hinges out there. He's really correct. Now, I haven't really messed with a lot of the ShockTech hinges from back in the day, and I think there's a couple other brands I just haven't really messed with too much. But, oops, cable's falling out down there. See if I can zoom in a little bit. Not too much. So, what it is here, if we look at the top, you have, the trigger is essentially three pieces. You have the sear, which I think is still just a standard Inception design sear, with the roller tip sear. And then you have this plate here, which is, I think, Delrin. I don't know if it's aluminum or Delrin, I don't know. Well, when we take it out, we'll find out. It may be aluminum. And then you have this trigger blade. And those are all three different individual parts, minus the springs that are in there and some other parts. Like on this one is only two parts. It's the trigger, the blade trigger, and then the sear. And we look at the top here, and I take the top off. This is the hinge one. This is the regular slider. If we look at the slider plates there, they're very similar. And so what it is essentially, this is a slider frame. The slider is in here still. He's machined away the front of the slider. He didn't machine away. He just changed the slider. So if I pull out one of these old sliders, this right here. So if you machine this front part off, maybe you only leave this bottom tang on, and you have this in here, and as this blade moves back, it pushes this whole mechanism back, and that's how it works. So it's pretty ingenious. And when he says you don't have to reverse the hoses like you would on the standard War Games and Planet Eclipse and CCMs and all the other different hinges that are out there, you have to reverse your 3/0 hoses. This one doesn't, because all it does is still retains the plate design like on just a standard slider, and this front trigger ends up being like a cantilever type of device that pushes that plate back. Okay, so makes a couple things nice. It has some of the standard springs, I'm assuming, that you would have for sliders. So you have maybe this front spring looks pretty much standard. Look at the box here. Looks like the standard size, and I think they are. They're that standard size. So if you have a set of springs already at home, although it comes with some nice springs, and you want to tune it out, you can. So you're not getting some proprietary spring or something like that. But that's kind of a neat idea, and it's kind of nice. And how he explains on his videos that you can kind of swap this back and forth with probably minimal tuning, and so which is really nice. Obviously has a safety, which is required in some events, which I'm glad to see. And what I like about this safety is that there's no slop. I mean, you cannot move that at all. You can move it forward a little bit, but not backwards. And so it's a nice, very strong safety. And obviously it's T-slotted. But my initial impressions, I really like this so far. It's comfortable in the hand. I have big hands. Zoom out here a little bit. I've got big hands, so this feels good because it's a little larger. But it's, even if you had smaller hands, you could still with these grips, you can still squeeze around them. Some people with really small hands, these palm swells back here, you may want to replace these panels with some just standard 45 panels. They're a little thinner, but that's all preference stuff, you guys. Now, I do know he says that we'll go with the auto trigger. His concerns is this Delrin plate on the inside and how it will survive with the auto trigger. And but besides that, when I come back here in a second, the next video is going to be all about taking this thing apart and let's looking at the inside. Boom. All right, we're back, and now I'm going to go through a teardown of this the new Inception design RIP frame, and see what the internals look like, folks. So let's start taking it apart. Nice thing is it takes it's the same wrench, whatever size this is. Hold on, let me figure it out. I think it's 3/32 or 5/64 5/64 probably. I don't remember. Horrible sizes. So the same size wrench for your grip frame screws are for these shoulder screws on the opposite side. At least I think. One thing I did, I took out the detent here, so I didn't want to do it on camera and have everything fly everywhere and stuff like that. So I kind of take my time doing that, so I don't lose the little ball and stuff like that. Which I probably have about 40 of those little ball bearings and somewhere rolling around in my garage. Okay, so with everything off, let's come up here. Let's look at that. So you have this screw right here goes through where the auto trigger is, and I think this is his rear stop screw. And then these two bottom screws are the glide screws for the trigger plate, and this screw right here is the sear hinge point for the sear, and then this screw is the hinge point for the blade trigger. So let's start by taking off this trigger stop mechanism. So it comes with the trigger stop, which is the standard trigger stop, I think. I don't think he changes it anyway, which makes a lot of sense. I don't know how much adjusting. Has a little bit of adjusting here, but it doesn't need much. And so this one, that off to the side. So now you can see inside, you can see where the auto trigger would be going. So let's take the sear one off, and I hold the top of that sear so nothing flies out. Okay, so there's the sear and the spurt in that. Put that off to the side. So it is a roller tip sear. It's nice. It's a matte finish. There's no polish work done on it, but it only takes a few minutes. All right, with that, I'm going to say let's go with the front blade. And let's see if we can take the front blade off. See how that all comes out. It feels like there's a little bit of an O-ring or something like that. It may just be the Loctite. I don't know. Come on, spin off. So we got to push it through the other side. Doesn't want to spin all the way off yet. Alright, I'm back and I got that screw out. So this is the screws there, and what was happening is a little bit of this Loctite on here. This was a little too much, and it was just catching when I was trying to pull back through this plate, and I had to just tap it out. So this trigger shoe, bring this up here a little closer. Try to get everything zoom in. Oh, there's when the bearings fell out. So it's got double roller bearings, which is nice in here. So you have to think about that as your maintenance, and if it starts getting gritty, that you may have to get some debris in here or something like that. They are exposed, so shouldn't be an issue. And then this has got the 3 adjustment points, and that's, if I recall, it's for how much force it puts on the this are your cantilever points. How much force it puts on this trigger plate. And then it's interesting, you can see these two little really thin washers, and they were on either side of this, and I think it's to kind of help reduce any slop in there. But one was tweaked. You see one kind of looks like a teardrop. It was tweaked, and I have some small washers like that. I think I'll replace that. But it may happen when I pulled it apart, or it may just got tweaked, but not the end of the world. Still nice. And then obviously it has the rubber bumper for the back here. That's actually kind of support for that spring. There's the spring, and the spring is about, I don't know, maybe about like a pin spring type of tension. But here's the key thing. So let's look at, there's that trigger plate, and there's the slide plate. Here is, a factory one. So we look at these. put them on, reverse them here so you can see. They're pretty much identical. All he did is he took off this part and dropped this part down here. So when this hinge, if I get everything here, when this pivots on this bearing, it pushes on this bottom piece and slides it back and forth. So that's how it works. So this is on a pivot point right about there probably, and when you pull back on this, it pushes this back. And by adjusting this screw up and down, determines where it puts pressure on this. There's more leverage down here, there's less leverage up there. Okay, so all in all, we take this out, we look on the inside, not much on the inside. So there's your parts. Put this comparative up there for you guys. If I can get everything to center here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So it does have the standard Inception Designs ramp or Resurrection, Empire Resurrection ramp. It has an interesting thing. It doesn't have a slotted hole like you see on some of these guys. It's no slot. This is just a round hole. It's a little bit larger than a standard 3-way pin, so it does give you a little bit of slop. There's a standard, I think, 1/8 inch 3-way pin. Oops, I think slides away there. If we flip it around here and try to focus everything, so it does have a little bit of play, but very little play comparative to this, where you have that play in there, and that aids in kind of allowing a little bit more sloppy timing. But you know how all these parts are being made now. There's the 3-ways are pretty precision. Not saying they weren't in the past. There's a lot of junk out there, and it just aids in it's just kind of better quality on some of these things. And they've kind of figured out the tricks where they say, hey, look, if we make a part like this, it's going to work really well in this configuration. So all in all, I'm going to get this thing back together. I'm going to throw it on a gun and see how it feels in my hand. And that will be the last portion of the video. So with that, folks, I'll see you back. Alright, Stockfire, and I'm back, and this is the kind of the final of this. It's not going to be a 3-part series. I'm just going to stitch all these together and call it good. But I took it apart. It's the last video, or the last segment that you saw. And now I put it on the Predator. And yeah, I know I bought the War Games one, but for whatever reason it works really well. So I don't know if it was sent by accident. I got a Inception one, but anyway, it works fine. So all in all, I really like it. It feels good. It's comfortable. It's a really short trigger pull, and it can go shorter than what this is if I wanted to. I haven't really messed around with the different adjustments here, so I'll try that. I haven't messed around with the springs, so I wanted to try it stock. The only thing I did do is I always polish the end of the sear, just something I do, and works good. But I like it. So all in all, for the price point, I think it's what, $240 or $230 or something like that for a frame. I'm noticing that most frames out there in that $225, $200 to $225 range, and heaven forbid try to find a Planet Eclipse hinge frame that's someone wants to sell you from under that used. So price points right there. These Cocker parts are for a small group, and it's getting much larger now. It's a little bit more expensive. You're in the upwards of $1,500 for a paintball gun, which you talk to a guy that's into firearms and they think you're nuts. But there's a lot more firearms folks out there, so that's why this stuff is a little bit more expensive. But anyway, I really like it. This thing seems to work really good. I'm happy with it. I'm going to gas it up right now. So put my aero tank on here. Let's there we go. Oh, I popped that thing in. All right. So I'm going to try to zoom out here a little bit. And I have it. And so one thing, when I did put this on here, I really did not have to touch the timing at all. The one thing I did do is I did have to screw this in just a tad bit from where it was, but I had already flattened this this trigger rod to fit the plate that was in there that had the oblong hole. So it could have been that. So if you have just a standard round one, you probably won't have an issue. I literally had to turn it in maybe a quarter turn, and it was fine. So let's I'll slowly pull back, just start the gas up. And I have it pretty conservative, I mean pretty tight timing. I could probably back off on the timing just a tad. And we'll do that real quick. We'll just back off on this, unscrew itself just a tad. Got a quarter turn there. So, fire, it's not gas, just starts the gas and it's there. So, and I'm not really good at doing the two-figure thing, but it still requires, you know, a little bit of force to pull back on this thing. So it's not bad at all. And I'm running out of gas, so I'm thinking I don't want to cock that well. Yeah. But anyway, all in all, let me degas this thing. You put a little lube in that thing down there, so it degasses. All in all, I like it. If you're in the market for a hinge frame and you want something new, I think it's worth the money. So with that, Dockfire's out. Oh, what does this get for trumps? All in all, guys, I rarely give 5 trumps out of 5. I give 5 on this because honestly, I haven't found any blemishes. I haven't found any issues. You know, if there's something that annoys me or something like that, you're not going to get, you know, 5 out of 5. You're going to get whatever. And so, all in all, I think it's a worthwhile investment. If you like hinge frames, it does feel a little different, folks, and just get used to that. But it is nice. I like it. Some people are really going to enjoy it. So anyway, everyone have a great time. Remember to like, subscribe wherever you do that here, and share this page with everyone. I appreciate it, and you guys have a good one. Doc out.